Optimus Prime here. Today I'm going to talk about something slightly different from the usual. It's not film related, it's not Transformers related. It is instead miniature wargame related, in that I want to have a quick little chat about Warhammer 40,000. As a child, I played a lot. I had an Orc army, I had a Space Wolf army, and I used to love playing games with my friends. So much so that I actually ended up working for Games Workshop for many, many years as a retail monkey. It was a really good period of my life, I think. Yeah, fun times. But when I was a kid, as much as I loved making and painting these little dudes, and fighting with them. That's not how you play Warhammer. When I was a kid, what I really couldn't understand was why there weren't action figures of Warhammer 40,000 characters. And for the longest time, there weren't. Bearing in mind, I got into this sort of stuff when I was about 9, and I'm now 43. Waiting that long to be able to get my hands on action figure of a Space Marine was just... But now there are several, in fact. There's the really expensive Bandai ones that cost the earth and are pretty cool, but you know, it's like 80 quid for one figure. And it's huge and doesn't really scale with anything and just sits on my shelf looking awesome. And although I don't have one to hand, there are the McFarlane figures, which are imposing and chunksome, but they're not particularly awesomely painted and not very posable. And again, they're giant and just take up all of the space. So imagine how happy I was to discover that Chinese company JoyToy were creating a range of Warhammer 40,000 figures. Now, I had literally just discovered this company. They've been around for a little while. They make some amazing sort of 1/18th and 1/25th scale mechs and characters to go with them. I have no idea on the stories or anything else, but I did sort of pick up some guys like this dude. This is from the Battle for the Stars line, and they're just awesome figures. They're sort of 5-6 inches, 4-5 inches tall, so they're 1/18th scale. They are super posable. They've got all the posability you would want from a much larger action figure, better than a lot of the stuff that's out there from sort of more mainstream manufacturers. Comes with all sorts of weapons and like guns and stuff. They all come off. All sorts of additional equipment that comes with them. Little helmet. Oh, look at his face. Oh, look at his face. So they're cool. So when I found out that they were making some Warhammer 40,000 ones, I was like, well, you know, that's pretty cool. I will probably buy those. So I have. Quite a few of them. But today, we're going to talk about this dude. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines Ultramarines Primaris Librarian from JoyToys. Whoa. Booth mode. Booth mode engaged. Praise be the God Emperor. Right, so here we go. These are a few of the figures that I've collected so far, and there's a few of the Space Marines at the back there, and the librarian himself is here. I do have another box of Space Marine Intercessors that I'm yet to open, which I might do a video on, and I also have another set of Space Wolf Space Marines on the way, and a couple of mechs as well, which I'm quite looking forward to because they look absolutely massive. So we'll talk about those another day. But today we are talking about this dude, the Space Marine Librarian. Let's have a quickie looking at him in all of his glory. So he is an imposing figure. He is not small. Considering he's a 1/18th scale figure, this is pretty massive. 1/18 is sort of roughly, ordinarily, sort of 3 3/4 inch scale, so about the same sort of height as a standard 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figure, or the old Star Wars figures. So this is one of the other JoyToy figures. This is the one from the Battle for the Stars collection. He is more sort of ordinary 3 3/4 inch. As you can see, he is quite dwarfed by the Space Marine, which is cool because it means that they have pretty much kept with the 1/18 scale, sort of a true scale kind of deal, as a Space Marine is supposed to be sort of 8-9 feet tall, especially the Primaris Space Marines that are larger than normal Space Marines. I will admit I have slightly dropped out of the lore in the last couple of years, so I'm not massively up on what's been going on. But anyway, so here we go. This is him in all of his amazingness. There is so much detail going on in this guy, and there are so many moving parts. And I'm going to be completely honest, although he looks really cool, he is possibly the least favourite of the figures that I've got so far. Let's have a quick look at what he comes with. He does not come with a huge number of accessories. Most of the others come with a few more bits and bobs, but we'll get onto that. He does come with several alternate hands, which we're going to look at in a second. He comes with a collector card with some gorgeous looking artwork with him doing psychic powers from his hand, and some information in Chinese. His name is Orseus. He is an Ultramarine, which is blatant from the U's that festoon his armour, and the blue colour of the armour as well. So, yeah, let's have a little bit more. Oh, silly me, I forgot about his alternate head. Now, I am going to fully admit that I am not a fan of this alternative head. And it's not that it's not well sculpted, and it's not that it doesn't look cool, it's that I'm just really not a fan of what they've done to try and do some kind of indication of psychic powers. They put this sort of metallic blue, well, eyeshadow is the best way to describe it, all around his eyes, which, you know, I have absolutely nothing against men in makeup at all. I have no issues there, and that's fine. However, as a representation of his psychic powers spilling out from his eyes, creating glowing eyes with lightning coming out of them and all sorts of fun things like that, it kind of falls a little bit short, and it does just look like he's wearing makeup, which again, not an issue, but it just doesn't. Anyway, so I don't tend to use that head. I will stick with his helmeted head with all of his gubbins. Oh, good grief! I've suddenly forgotten all the things I knew about Space Marines. He has with him. Oops. Let's get that back into focus. He has a nice force sword, which again is painted with the same sort of shiny metallic colour, sort of highlighted to a point nicely there, with some edge highlighting on all of these bits. They have taken the time to paint these properly, almost to the point where they do actually almost look like they're painted in the style of sort of how you would paint your miniatures, which is quite cool. There's obviously some dry brushing being going on here. Another thing that I have an issue with this figure particularly is that the painting it's a little bit sloppy, it's a little bit messy, and considering that this figure cost a fair chunk more than the standard ones, it's a little bit disappointing, I'm going to have to say. It's not to say it doesn't look amazing, it really does, and I do love it, but a little bit more care and attention perhaps, as this is a higher end, more expensive figure than the basic rank and file troops, who tend to have slightly better paint apps. but they're a bit more simple. So yeah, and also I don't know, but the turnaround on these since they were announced to them being released has been very quick. So I don't know how long they were sitting on them before they were announced, or whether they were announced and then came out almost immediately. I don't know, but it does seem that the lead time on these has been quite short. So there's a bit of sloppy paint there. There's a bit of sloppy paint around his feet, and it's blatantly just dry brushed on the inside here, so it's gone over quite a bit. But things like the parchment on the purity seals here, that looks quite cool. It's mostly good, but as I say, for a figure that's cost more than the standard figures, I mean, he's about 50 to 60 quid, give or take. I can't remember what I paid for him. And a box set of 4 of the standard guys cost between about 80 and 90 pounds, and that's shipped from China. So obviously you're paying for a bit for postage there. So they're about roughly 2 of those for the price of him, give or take. And you'd expect the quality to be up there. Now the quality in terms of sculpting and moulding and the amount of complexity to the model is definitely there, but some of the other things are a little bit lacking. But again, I can't really comment on why that might be. So he's got all of these robes, and they're again painted quite nicely. So you've got all the shading in between the sections, and all of that. It's kind of a rubbery plastic, sort of vinyl, but it's quite thick. It's not really posable in any way. There's no wiring to it, but it is nicely sculpted, so it does flow well and looks very dynamic when he is static. Posability wise, let's start at the feet. You have the toes moved, so you've got a fair bit of movement there for posability, so you can sort of have him stood back with his foot like so. There's an ankle full ball joint on his foot. His ankle that way and that way and that way, and a little bit of movement back and forth as well. His knees are double jointed knees, so you've got a fair bit of movement there. There is also a thigh swivel, and at the hips we can't really get to. You've got a fairly good range of movement. It's the standard movement for the other figures, which I'll show you in a moment. The arms, so the pauldron, his shoulder pad, does move. That's on a separate joint that's attached to his shoulder, and his shoulder, where it connects to his body, has a fair bit of movement as well. It comes out in and out of the body, so you've got a bit more movement there, which you can't really see. Again, he's got a bicep swivel, and also again a double joint in his elbow to give you a fair range of movement. His movement is somewhat encumbered by all of his extra gubbins, like all these tubing that comes along here, and the tubing that comes down there, and indeed all of the robes, which do get a bit in the way and encumber him a little bit in terms of posing. He does have, on the inside of his hand there, it's painted again with that silver effect, the bluey silver effect, to sort of show that he's casting some kind of ability from his hand. And I find it a little bit weird, really, because you've got it on the inside of this hand, which is his sort of closed fist. And you've also got it on this hand, which is almost like his weapon holding hand. But then on the open hand, that you'd expect perhaps to have some kind of action going on, so you could see him, his hand open. It doesn't have the paint, which is weird. And I've looked at a couple of other examples, and they all seem to have the same thing. So it's not a factory error that I can tell. It's just a weird choice. His book and his keys. Don't lose your keys. And in the body, we have, there's a fair bit of movement there, but again, it's quite a lot of it is encumbered by his robes. Turning to the back, we've got some nice purity seals on his backpack. The intakes do move if you'd like to pose them. Don't know why you would, but you know, you could pretend they're boosters. No, anyway. The head has a fair bit of movement in there. It's sort of ball jointed in two places, so you get a little bit of movement, but again the hood sort of encompasses it, and the actual size of his helmet gets in the way. Oops, focus there. Gets in the way a wee bit, but posing wise looks quite awesome. And his sword fits in his hand quite well, and you can pose his hand again, ball jointed, so you've got quite a lot of movement there, and quite a bit of movement on his arm. So you've got loads of posing options. Now I do find with this particular arm, which I'm going to be quite careful, the pauldron on this side does have a tendency to pop out of the hole on his shoulder, so I've been quite careful with that for posing. But you've got a nice range of movement. You can do quite a lot with him, and he is dynamic, and he looks amazing, and you can stand him up in most positions without any problems due to his large, solid feet. So yeah, he looks really cool. He looks amazing. I do love most things about this range. As I say, I have more quibbles with this figure than I do with any of the other ones that I've got so far. If I was to grab one of these other dudes, you can see again that they've got very similar range of motion. There, they've got all the double jointers on the arms, the ball jointed hands, on the legs, the hips, which you couldn't quite see on his model. They move out up and down quite freely. Double jointed knees with the knee pad sort of hiding the double joint there quite well, and getting quite a lot of posability with the rest of the figure. Some of these accessories come out, so the knives come out, the magazine comes out of his bolt gun there, and there's a couple of interchangeable hands and a few other accessories that you can have. So yes, but as you can see, I mean, it's a simpler paint job, but it's a lot cleaner. It's not quite so messy on the dry brushing. I mean, it is a little bit messy, but it has been blatantly just dry brushed on the edges, which, you know, is I think tabletop standard is what springs to mind. They're sort of painted to tabletop as opposed to sort of Golden Demon standard, to use some Warhammery parlance. So, do I love them? Yes, I do. Very much so. It's so nice to have a super posable, lovely to look at range of action figures based on things that I really, really love. A couple little scale things. So here is a Plague Marine that was halfway through painting at some point. Okay, see, I can paint a little bit. Not so much now because my eyes are rubbish. Let's just pop him there so you can see that he is tiny compared to these new dudes. And here is a normal Primaris Marine, which I haven't painted because I don't collect them. These there. And here is the Bandai figure, who is an enormous beast, and towers above the new figures. But he is, I think, sort of 7-inch, roughly 7-inch scale. Not really a scale per se, but yes. So he's considerably larger, but considering that this figure on its own costs so much more, posability wise it's not quite as good as the JoyToy figures. it has some really nice posability. There's some in some ways it's better. The head moves really well. Pauldrons are completely independent. There's a little bit less give in the feet. Maybe a little bit harsh. No, the feet are definitely a bit stiffer. And I have found this guy. He looks amazing, but he's a bit more difficult to pose. And the paint it's cleaner, but it's not much better. Again, for the price, there's not a lot of shading in any of these pieces. The bolt gun's pretty much just grey with a couple of paint taps here and there. The armour has got a little bit more detail to it. It's sort of a darker. It's obviously it's a bit dusty. Sorry. It's got some shading in there, but it's paint-wise, it's not really up to much. And mine's chipped on his little skull, which is disappointing. But yes, so the JoyToy figures overall, it's a fantastic range. They released images very recently of all of the different figures that they've got planned for the next few years, and there are already so many. Currently, character figures like this are singles, and the troop squads come in box sets of 4, but each figure is then boxed individually within that, which I'll go over when I do my video on the intercessors. They look amazing. They look really nicely posed all together. They're just fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to the battle suit that is coming out. It's sort of a dreadnought style thing. A newer Primaris model with a Marine can sit inside it. I forget what they're called. Something battle suits. They're amazing. And I've seen pictures of people who already got them, and they are huge. So I'm very much looking forward to doing a video on that. Anyway, this has been my waffle about JoyToy Space Marines, specifically, apologies, specifically this dude, the librarian figure. If you like Warhammer, if you like action figures, you honestly cannot go wrong with these. They are so good, so good. They look amazing. They're great fun to play around with. They're great fun to pose. They look incredible together on a shelf. All of the JoyToy figures I've got so far, I might do another video on some of the other ones I've got. But again, they're so nice. They look incredible. So poseable, so much detail, and compared to a lot of the other action figure companies on the market at the moment, in a lot of ways these guys are head and shoulders above. I really can't fault them for the most part. As I say, the librarian figure has been my most disappointing figure so far. Right, anyway, that's enough waffle from me. I have been I've been Ultramarines Prime. I will be doing more reviews of these figures because they're fantastic. Thank you for watching. Goodbye to you.
Fingers on plastic.